At time with Jordan. Is this mic on? The mic is live. Alright, we are ready to go. Foodie talk. Alright. On the radio, let's stop footing. Yes, this is AI. Keen to get started. Pump those ratings up high. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Alrighty guys, welcome back to another episode of Airtime with Jordan. Today is actually the 50th episode, and I know I said I was going to take a hiatus for a little bit, and that still is the case, but this is a bit of a special podcast. Couldn't resist after the weekend of footy. A little bit to talk about, and thought, it's been 3 or 4 weeks, so probably can't coincide with a good time to give a little bit of an update on the power rankings and such, but yeah, as I said, on the back of round 20, a very special pod. I'm back for this week, but yeah, as I said, we probably won't be back until finals. Definitely couldn't resist this week. Had some stuff in my mind after the weekend's games, and yeah, we're going to start with a new segment called the Not So Secret Star Society inductee, and I'm sure many of you can guess who we're going to be talking about. Everyone is talking about this bloke at the moment, but we'll get to that in a second. We're going to go through some updated power rankings heading into the finals, so I'll do that. This will probably be the last one before the final series as well, but I'll give the final power rankings for the season in the lead up to that. When we are back, I will make sure I get a finals preview podcast done, and then we're also going to go through some detailed thoughts on a few of the teams, not all of those, as we go through the power rankings. And then, very exciting, I'm gonna close off with a top 10 players in the league segment. I think that after I go through the Not So Secret Star Society inductee at the top of the show, I think I want to give it a bit of a crack at who I think is rounding out the top 10 at the moment in the league. So with that being said, let's go to this Not So Secret Star Society inductee, and that is, this podcast basically is the Nasiah Wanganeen Milera special. I wasn't necessarily saving the 50th episode for any special reason, but God has given me a reason today, and that reason is Nasiah Wanganeen Milera. And I tried to warn everyone that this bloke was coming, and he's absolutely arrived, and in bigger fashion than I would have even predicted. But I did say this after round 2 that after their game against the Cats, it was against the Saints, and when they beat the Cats, that was, and I said, I know a lot of people may not watch the Saints this much, but if you do, please watch Nasiah Wanganeen Milera. He's the best halfback in the game for mine. Elite by foot, tough as defensively, great interceptor, has great hands, and just controls the game like no other halfback does. So that was my take in round 2, and I was probably as high as you could be on Nasiah Wanganeen Milera, but I don't think anyone necessarily saw the last sort of 6 or 7 weeks coming. I think that sort of cemented himself as... I just don't think any other player in the league has the capability that he does as a true two-way threat, and he's very much exceeded my expectations with his move up the field out of defence. So obviously still playing a bit of time there, but spending a lot more time in the midfield over the last few weeks, and I think he's the most damaging kick in the league. When he's had a couple of weeks even in this run where he hasn't been at his absolute best, but his kicking is unbelievable. Off half back, he's even more potent where he has the game ahead of him. But, in the last couple months or so, when he has moved into the midfield, his efficiency has gone down slightly, as expected, of course, when you're a bit more in congestion. But his kick rating has still been elite, which is really, really impressive. And the kick threat rating, is how often his kicks result in a shot at goal later in the chain of disposals for that team. So he's still been able to open up things with his creativity for a team that has an absolutely horrible forward line. If anyone who's watching a lot of Saints games, and that is me mainly because of this bloke, but their forward line is possibly the worst forward line in the league, and I think that the fact that his kick rating is still maintained as high as it has over this period is really very much a credit to him. And out of the top 20 disposal getters over the last 5 weeks, only Finn Callahan has a better kick rating, that's absolutely props to Finn Callahan and everything, but he also has the luxury of having one of the best forward groups on the end of those kicks or the end of those chains. So, when you're comparing the two, it's not necessarily apples to apples in this scenario. And I think, that sort of just proves my point as to how damaging he has been inside as well. And yeah, since he's moved into the midfield, he's really succeeded in his role as a stoppage player. I didn't know if he was going to be able to do that, given he has a bit of a slighter frame, but he is pretty competitive and strong. So he's managed to become a really good stoppage player as well, whilst also adding the ability to move forward and impact the scoreboard at a higher rate than he has been able to do off half back. He was always a threat to hit the scoreboard off sort of handoffs or when he's breaking 50, but now he's resting forward a little bit more, like we saw on the weekend in the Melbourne game. And yeah, I just think that he is the most complete player I've possibly ever seen in my lifetime following footy, and it's not just being a jack of all trades. He can really do everything at a high level. There are very few holes in his game at the moment, and because you just go through the things that he does, these are all ticks. He finds a ball, he uses it immensely well. He intercepts the ball at a high rate. He tackles. He hits the scoreboard. He can absolutely fly for marks, as Bailey Fritsch found out on the weekend. He was an absolute stepladder. Has elite speed, really good speed, and he's a meters gained beast. And then probably most importantly of all, we saw it on the weekend as well. He is a very high IQ player and understands the game in great detail, and is able to create things on the fly. And he really is just this. Become for St Kilda this heliocentric player where it's everything can go through him. He has been in. I think we've had two coaches. Sam Mitchell said it when the Hawks played them 3 weeks ago. Chris Scott said it 2 weeks ago as well. So two of the best coaches in the league said that they just had no way to stop him, and then we saw that again on the weekend against Melbourne. And he's done it against good competition, against bad competition, and they haven't necessarily resulted in wins for the Saints, but his impact on the game is just incredible. I think we're really viewing someone that is reaching heights that I personally haven't seen. In terms of being what I said, he's just a complete player. I don't think I've ever seen anyone that does all these things to this level. And Gary Ablett Jr. maybe is the only one, but even then he didn't have the defensive side of the game that this bloke does. And I'm not saying this guy is on Gary Ablett Jr.'s level just yet, but if he is able to put together this for the next sort of 5 years, this sort of this sort of package, then I don't see why we can't be talking about him in that status. And I know that's really, really crazy, and I know it's a small-ish sample size with him playing in the midfield, but he's relatively inexperienced, and some of the best coaches in the competition have not been able to stop him either. So it's pretty good signs for him and the Saints going forward. And yeah, as I said, there really hasn't been a player who can do all of this at the level he's currently doing it at the moment. And yeah, I think we have a new king at St Kilda who have absolutely been crying out for a sort of a top 5 player in the league since their golden era in the 2000s, late in 2010, whatever it was. But yeah, his name is Nasiah the Messiah, and he's definitely not. I don't think he's 5, 4, 3 or 2. I think right now he is the best player in the league. I think a lot of people are thinking that as well. It's not crazy to think, and I've seen enough. He's only 22, and yeah, it's crazy hours being a Saints fan, and I really, really am begging him to stay at the Saints. I think they're he's the type of player who people are going to come to the Saints and want to play with him. And yeah, I think that if that's the way things unfold, then that's even better for the Saints in my opinion. So yeah, very, very high praise for Nasiah Wanganeen Milera. He is playing out of his mind at the moment. And I don't think anyone else is remotely close to him at the moment in the competition. So yeah, with that being said, congrats to Nasiah and the Saints. And yeah, let's go into the power rankings. Alrighty, so in my power rankings, we are going to start off at number 1. We've got the Brizzy Lions, and I know they still had they had a big loss on the weekend. No getting away around that against the Gold Coast, of course. But for me, I just think they have the pedigree, they have the stars to hit the highest ceiling come September. And I think there's a couple of things they need to figure out schematically, especially with the 2 rucks at the moment. But I think that they still are the best team in the league, and I'm not going to shy away from having the Lions number 1 unless something changes over the next 4 weeks leading into the finals. We have some movement though. At number 2, I have Adelaide. So yeah, this team is going to be very tough. They're going to end up being in the top 2, I think. And I talked about their size a few weeks ago with the amount of, I think they said there's 11 or 12 guys over 190 centimeters in their lineup, but it really just smacks you in the face as you watch them. And I was a little bit worried about the wet weather against. Not worried. I still thought they would win against Port, but they play well enough in the wet despite them being that big. And I think that although they are so much bigger than their opponents, they don't really sacrifice much leg speed either. And I sort of talked about that as well in that segment a few weeks ago, where they have all these tall dudes, but they also have a lot of guys who are capable of putting a pressure on all day, like your Peatlings, your Saligos, those sort of guys who just keep on going, and Berry as well in the middle. So, they are really, they've done really well to complement their team. Ben Key's another one who just does not stop running as well. So you've got a lot of high effort, high leg speed guys who, high stamina guys anyway, that just keep chasing. And I think it's a really impressive sort of profile that the Adelaide Crows are building. And I'm very, very bullish on them, especially if they get that top 2 spot and they don't leave Adelaide Oval until grand final day potentially. So that's why I've got them 2 at the moment. Number 3, Geelong. I think that they're priming themselves very nicely at the moment. They're managing their play as well. We saw Danger eating a Suva on the bench on the weekend. And I just think that their X Factor guys are absolutely in ripping form. Obviously, they've had Bailey Smith playing really well all year. Max Holmes is playing really well all year. Jeremy Cameron is absolutely at the peak of his powers at the moment, which is a scary thing for the competition. The only worry I do have about Geelong is Tom Stewart. Like, it seems like every other week at the moment he has these persistent knee injuries that just like sort of hamper him, and he looks like he's got a dead leg all of a sudden, and has been a little bit worried down back. Like, obviously if he goes down, I'm not going to be as high on the Cats, but if he's there, then I think they're my 3rd team at the moment. Number 4, I have the Hawthorn Hawks in my power rankings, and people might be calling me a bit of a homer here, but my boys are back on my radar at least. And I think that seeing Will Day, I know it was against Carlton, but I think people forget how much Will Day changes this team, and especially the dynamic in the midfield. Like, they just look like an AFL midfield all of a sudden. They've been struggling with Jai Newcombe as the only sort of lone soldier and Josh Ward trying to contribute, but having Will Day in there just adds that different element and adds that X factor to the midfield that I think that they need. And they're starting to blend the Wiz to go through there a bit as well at the moment, so they're getting different looks through there. I just really like the way that the midfield's shaping up. Lloyd Meek playing very well this year again. James Sicily had his best game for the year. He's had a few really good weeks, I think, at the moment. Is starting to get back to his All-Australian level. Dylan Moore as well has been great for the last 2 months as well, I think. That if you've got those two playing at that sort of level again, and everyone else is improving, and you've got Will Day back, I think it's a pretty formidable team that they're starting to build for at the moment. And in my opinion, the back line is just absolutely the best in the league at the moment, and the combination of types of players they have back there, the depth as well. Like, they have guys that that aren't going to get a game, that would be getting a game in pretty much every other team's back line. If Weddle comes back, then that's probably going to squeeze Scrimshaw out, who I don't know how you can have a back line and not include Jack Scrimshaw. I think he's one of the better intercept and hybrid sort of defenders in the league, but that's just the reality of the back line. And pretty excited for that come finals time. The forward line as well looks so much better structured with Cole Shadir and Mitch Lewis up there. I think that there's going to be some really tough selection issues if everyone's healthy around that time, and it just gives, the more that they're able to build chemistry as well with the smalls who are playing quite well at the moment. And Jack Ginnivan, I haven't been a huge fan of his over the journey, but he is playing really, really good footy at the moment, so got to shout him out. But most of all, I just trust Sam Mitchell to make the run at the right time, and I think he's really building this team perfectly for a finals run. And they're starting to get really healthy around the right time of year as well, I think. And continuing on from that theme, Josh Weddle is rumoured to make a return too, possibly before the end of the home and away season. But looks like it's probably going to be in the finals as well. So that's a pretty handy player to be able to add back into this team. But I think that they are ready for a bit of a run here. I think the Hawks, they obviously learned from last year. They had to do that surprise run, and I think that they're sort of sneaking up on people again at this time of year. And I might be a bit of a homer, but I just feel like something's happening there at the moment. I think they've played very, very good footy in that first quarter against Carlton on the weekend. Probably one of the best quarters I've seen them play for the year, if not the best. And I don't think that's a coincidence, with them also fielding what I think was the best team that they've fielded for the year. So yeah, pretty exciting for the Hawks fans out there. Now, Pies fans, don't kill me, but I'm off his. Like they've been bad by their standards, and maybe unfairly so. They set a pretty high bar at the start of the season across that first sort of 10-12 weeks, but they've fallen off a little bit in my opinion, and I don't think it's necessarily Sydney-esque in terms of they're going to have a horrible grand final performance or something like that if they do get there. But I just don't know if they have enough stars to get the job done at the moment. Like, obviously, you got Nick Dacos, and they've got a number of guys who are pretty scalable in their roles. I've talked about Jack Crisp before as well, and they've got a couple of guys to come back. But I think that them being out front all year, it might work against them, similar to how it worked against Sydney last year, where you've got all teams being able to scout you and see what you're doing well for the most part of the year, and seeing what's working against other teams. So I think teams understand Collingwood maybe a bit better than they would like at the moment, unless they're sort of holding back and just going to make me look like a fool come finals time. But I think that that's a real thing, and two of their game breakers and guys that I consider in that like sort of star category are very much underdone at the moment. Bobby Hill and Jordan McGoey coming back through the VFL at the moment, so that the fact that their sort of X Factor guys are a bit underdone. Dacos has had to shoulder a huge load off for most of the year as well. The older guys I know are still playing well, but with Howe getting injured a couple of weeks ago, and their reliance on Scott Pendlebury and Steele Sidebottom, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a bit worried about how they're going to go in terms of fatigue as the season goes on. And the ability to put finals level pressure on. Like, we've seen how much pressure matters, and I know that their system has provided that pressure for the most part this year, but come finals time, every team is going to be trying their absolute guts out. Every team is going to have a full season of their belt with their own system working in place, and I guess at that point it comes down to, do you have the talent and the system, and I think they do have the talent. I think they do have the system. I just don't know if the talent and / age is gonna hold them back a little bit. Like, which I understand Pies fans are probably a bit angry with the, like you're saying that me saying that they aren't talented. It's not the case. I just don't think that they have. Like, if you went through the top 50 players of the AFL, I just don't think that Collingwood would have too many that would be in the top 50. Like, to be quite frank with you, like Nick Dacos obviously headlines that, but I just don't think that, apart from him, like who are you definitely putting in the top 50 players in the league? Maybe Darcy Moore, even then, like maybe, like he's not. I wouldn't say he's like a top 5. He might be a top 5 key defender in the league. I'd have to go through it, but like that's sort of my point. They've got a lot of really, really good players. Don't get me wrong, but none that are like, other than Dacos, it's like, well, who's that next tier of star for them? And you got your Josh Dacos, you got your Scott Pendlebury and Steele Sidebottom, and all those sort of guys. But you see my point. They don't really have those like real high end guys at the moment. And I would have said Dan Houston was that before this year. He hasn't been the same sort of player. Josh Dacos, I'd probably put in that category. He'd probably be a top 50 player. But yeah, I think it starts to get thin for the Pies as you go. Darcy Cameron, I'll put him in there as well. Sorry, my bad, Darcy. But that's sort of my take on the Pies. The Doggies, yeah, they're 6th for me at the moment, and they're still in it just because of the talent they have. But I think you do have to question why they can't beat any good teams as well, and they just haven't been able to get that done consistently. So that might be the reason that they end up missing the 8 as well. They just consistently haven't beaten anyone that's any good. Freo, they're 7th for me, and the only thing I don't love about this team is how they travel, and they beat Collingwood at the G a few weeks ago. That's still front of mind, obviously, but I just don't think they travel that well, and I don't know if I can fully trust them for whatever reason, and unless they get a home final, they might. They're definitely not going to be top 2, I wouldn't have thought. So then, are they going to be 5th or 6th, and then are they going to win it from there anyway? Then probably not. But they might win a final. But yeah, I think that I do like Freo, and I like the sort of balance of their team at the moment. But yeah, it's just, especially Hayden Young coming back gives them a bit more of an upside, I think. But yeah, I'm not 100% on the Dockers at the moment. GWS I have at 8th, and if Nasiah Wanganeen Milera didn't exist, we'd all probably be frothing over Finn Callahan. The dude is really, really playing like Chris Judd sort of type at the Eagles, with his running power, and he's just really untaggable at his size, and I think he really realised that on the weekend. He had a bad first half against the Swans, and then just absolutely tore the game apart in the second half there. So yeah, I think that they look, to me, they have the top end talent, but just for some reason it just never seems to come together for them. So yeah, got them at 8th at the moment. The Suns, they're coming in at 9th for me, and I know that they've beaten some serious teams. They've beaten the Collingwood and the Lions in the last 4 weeks or so, but I'm just not there yet. If they do similar to Freo, I think if they get a home final, then I might change my tune. Especially if that happens to be in the top 2. I don't think they're going to get there though, but I just can't get there with the Suns at the moment, and they might make me look a bit silly, but I just sort of trust the other 8 teams more than them. And this isn't me necessarily thinking that they're going to miss the finals, because I think they're almost guaranteed to make the finals, given they have that game in hand against Essendon, which absolute shit show for the AFL that you're giving. Like, this is why it was always stupid. Like I said at the time, like, you're going to get to a point in the year where Essendon are probably going to be out of contention, and it's even worse than we all thought, and you're just putting it at the end of the year and giving the Suns a free win, when if that was in round 0, Essendon are healthy, fit, up and about, and they may not win. So very, very bad handling by that on the AFL. They're probably still good enough to be in there, but yeah, I do at the end of the day trust the other 8 teams a bit more, in terms of definitely having impact in the finals. Sydney, charging a little bit too late, unfortunately for them. They had their last hurrah on the weekend against the Giants, but yeah, time to build for next year. Port Adelaide, they're 11th. The Port Power are in my power rankings, and they've had a pretty bad year, obviously, in Ken's last go around, the little merry-go-round they gave him, but I think that the list is just, as I said, really bad shape right now. They have, 5 or 6 players that are really good and can contribute over the next sort of 5 to 8 years, in Rosie, Butters, Horne-Francis, Georgiades, Bergman in theory, although he's been quite bad since he signed that contract. And also on the weekend, like, how are you, the first player of the game, how are you going the wrong way, bro? Like, are you even locked in at all? Which way your ruckman's facing, which way your forward line is. I just have no idea how you go the wrong way in an AFL game. It didn't matter anyway. They were always going to get crushed. But anyway, side note. But yeah, other than those guys, like, who in this team is going to be in another team's best 22 next year? Like I really, really urge you to go through the list of players other than Rosie, Butters, Horne-Francis, Georgiades, Bergman, and Alira is another one, but he's old, so I didn't include him in that original core. But yeah, the list is in not a very good position right now, and an ageing list in that. Carlton, they're 12th for me. I don't think it's as dire as some people might think for them. That they've found some players this year. Carroll's come along really nicely. Harry O'Farrell looking very, very good. Ashton Moyer as well, bit of X Factor. I've been a big fan of his for a minute now, and I think as well they've had some big outs this year. Elijah Hollins as well. Brodie Kemp, of course, did his Achilles, I think it was. Jagger Smith, ACL before the season. Nick Newman, same thing. And Matty Cottrell barely played at all this year. So a few stalwarts of their team over the last few years that have been out completely or played very interrupted seasons. And interrupted seasons for Harry Mackay, who, take it what you will, he may just not be that dude anymore, which is, I think, probably the case. But interrupted for him, interrupted for Sam Walsh as well. Cripps has been down. Harry and Charlie barely played together. I think there's a lot of explanations for why this season's gone wrong. I don't think it's as simple as being like, oh, Vossi sucks, or whatever idiots are saying at the moment. But the game style is absolutely an issue. I'm not gonna beat around the bush on that one. But I think that you can fix that in an off season, right? And overall, I think that there's a path forward that definitely has them as a finals team as soon as next year, or definitely the year after, depending on player development. But things are lining up pretty nicely for the Blues. They're going to get a top 10 pick for De Koning if and when he leaves. Harry Dean is a father-son key defender meant to go in the top 10 this year, so get two top 10 picks for free effectively with De Koning leaving, and if they had their own pick, then that would be 3 as well this year. And that they even have Jagger Smith coming back, so you've got three players who are going to be top 10 picks that are coming into your team next year. And I just think that the combination of their stars being a bit healthier, the outs I mentioned actually being available, whether they trade Harry for like a bit more another asset or an ready-made depth piece, whatever, you're getting some value there potentially. As I said, you're essentially getting 3 top 10 picks into the fold next year. There's more consistency, just from like a player's perspective. I can't imagine they're going to be less healthy than they have been this year, and then the following off season they get the number 1 pick because Andrew Walker's kid's the best player in the draft. Like, things just aren't that dire for the Blues. Like, things have actually, I understand it's a little bit luck based, some of those things that have fallen into their lap, especially the influx of young talent, but they've got an off season to sort of clean a few things up, maybe get rid of Harry and see what you can do around there. I know I said trade Charlie, but I think that the way that Harry's playing right now, that you can't really afford to lose Charlie and keep Harry. Harry's almost a 0 at the moment out there on the field, so yeah, I just think with all those things sort of happening, you can't act like they're in such a dire position, especially when you're comparing them to some of the other teams around the league, like North Melbourne and Melbourne and things like that. So yeah, some of it's luck based, and they need to make the right pick still, but they definitely have the potential to be good again very shortly, and also Paddy Cripps is just going to be, like, more likely he's not going to have as bad a season he has this year. So you're getting another good player that's coming, like a better season from Paddy Cripps in all likelihood as well. So things aren't as dire as you think for the Blues. Essendon, I know they've had a horrible year with injury, so not much to talk about there. The Saints are next. Just keep Nasiah Wanganeen Milera, please. Do whatever you can to keep him, and that's all I have really on the Saints. Melbourne, they're the next up, and just in a horrible spot at the moment. I think they need to follow something similar to what Richmond did last year, where it's like, this list is not going anywhere. You're not going to be able to compete again. Just sell whatever you can. Sell the spare parts. Just go to the records. Get rid of anything for value, and just clean the slate. Like, obviously keep a few players, senior guys that you're not going to get any value for. Your Levers and May, you're not going to get anything for those guys, or Clayton Oliver. Even then, like, he's not really setting a good example for anyone. But yeah, I think, and I don't think you're getting rid of Max Gawn, but everyone else should be on the table, including, in my opinion, Cozzy Pickett. I just don't think you're getting anything of value for anyone not named Cozzy or Petrarca, and even then Petrarca you're probably not going to get much for because of the contract, so almost makes him a negative asset in a way as well. And Clayton Oliver is absolutely in that negative asset territory, but like, who else can you honestly trade? That's what I'm saying. Like, maybe they do have to look at trading Cozzy Pickett. I understand that they signed him for, 10, 12 years, but now that you have him under contract, and he wanted to go back east, like, his value is at an absolute all-time high. Like, and you have the sort of the benchmark of what Richmond got for Shea Bolton at the end of last year, that maybe you could hang that over a team's hat and be like, well, if Shea Bolton's worth this, then Cozzy Pickett is worth this plus more. So I understand it might be a bit sad for Melbourne fans to go through that roller coaster of having signed him and then trading him, but how else are you going to jumpstart this rebuild? Like, they have some guys who are okay, that look promising, young guys, like, I'm a Trent Rivers fan. He's young enough that you'd keep around. Harvey Langford as well as the other one, and Daniel Turner's been okay down back, but there really isn't much here. Caleb Windsor, I thought, would take a better leap than he has. He hasn't, and yeah, I just don't know really how you jumpstart this rebuild, especially without your own pick at the moment. And yeah, there really needs to be something, a complete overhaul for Melbourne at the moment. Richmond, they've jumped out of second last on my power rankings. Very good year from them overall. Not sure it's happened in the way that they would necessarily think. I think that the young stars probably haven't come on or shown as much as you would have liked. They hadn't made a big song and dance and did the right thing. They traded all the players out that had value, or some of the players out that had value, and got a lot of draft pieces in. But other than Sam Lawler and Jonty Fall at times, who, Lawler's had a very interrupted year, but he absolutely showed flashes of being the best player in the draft, and is a tick for me. I don't think that you definitely have ticks on any other of the draftees that have come through necessarily this year, and that might be a bit naive of me to say. I can't pretend like I've watched every Richmond game where every one of those players has played, but I think that Jonty Fall's the other one who I think has had signs. But yeah, overall, I don't think it probably hasn't been the year in terms of getting those young stars to show glimpses that you've made the right picks. But I do think that you can absolutely hang your hat on the fact that Adam Muzay can coach, and I don't necessarily like the way he's handled a few things this year, namely Tom Lynch's situation and of course Noah Bolter's. But if he's going to be one of those Ross Lyon type of coaches who gets the most out of his team, then that could be maybe the most valuable move that they've made in the last 2 years. And he looks like he absolutely understands the modern game and where it's going. And they're definitely building an archetype of players. They love their fleet-footed players. A lot of small guys with speed, Ryan Mansell's, Seth Campbell's, and those sort of players with rangy, tall, key position players that they have. So I've liked what I've seen from a few of them. Blight is another one that I've really enjoyed watching over the years. So there's been some good signs, but definitely overachieved from where I thought they would, and I think a large part has to go to Adam Muzay for that. And I think that they're definitely on the improve, and hopefully next year that some of those young guys that they did take in the draft are going to take another step and showed some more signs. So. Yeah, big tip for Richmond on their year, and they've managed to knock North Melbourne down to second last on my power rankings, and it's really sad to think that they're already, in my opinion, behind Richmond in their rebuild, because they've been there for 6 or 7 years now, and I don't really know how you look at the results and you can think anything less. I don't really know where they'd go from here. I haven't got a great answer for you, but they're locked in with Clarko as their coach. They're paying him a heap out of their soft cap. They already had a huge assistant package from the AFL who would just look stupid to give them another one, especially with Tassie coming into the competition. It included priority picks they had to trade. Things like that, which hasn't helped. Their young guys haven't improved, and the big one for me is Harry Sheezel. He's regressed. I looked at his stats, compared his stats today, and he's regressed in every single stat apart from Clangers, where he's increased, which is not a stat you want to increase. So, he's been had a really, really bad. I understand he's set the benchmark quite high and probably hasn't had a bad year if he was a first year player or anything like that who have a great year, but. His tackles have increased 0.6 a game. There you go. There's one that's increased. But this dude was the cornerstone of this team. He was an All-Australian halfback last year. Yes, he set a high bar for himself, but this was the year that the Kangaroos were meant to take a leap. This was the year that things were meant to get easier for him, and they did that. They brought in Caleb Daniel to help with that halfback role, who has been an absolute disaster. They brought in Luke Parker. They brought in who was the other one? Jack Darling, of course. And in theory, this was meant to help some of the younger players and take some burden off his shoulders. And Harry Sheezel's job should have been easier in theory this year. And maybe the volume does drop a bit because Caleb Daniel takes every single kick out. But the volume taking a step back, you'd probably expect the efficiency might increase. But the fact that both dropped, and the efficiency dropped dramatically as well. He's down to like 50% by foot this year, or 56% by foot this year. So. Really, really bad year for Harry Sheezel by his standards, and as I said, I really don't know where this team goes from here. But the fact that their prize possession, All Australian from last year, has regressed in a year that was meant to be a big step forward by them, and it's really got me worried for the rest of the development. And they traded this year's first rounder to Richmond, so good on you, North. West Coast, their season's done. They need some more vets. The drafting and development's going to be whatever. I'm not really interested in who they draft this year. The thing that they need to do is bring some senior bodies in, especially midfielders, to be able to develop Harley Reid and Elijah Hewitt as well. So that's sort of where I'm at with them. They need a bit of everything. They need some seasoned key position players as well, which it's just not easy to find them and not easy to sell coming to West Coast to play for nothing. So I think it's going to have to be a lot of internal development from them, and hopefully they can start hitting some better notes next year. Now, with that being said, we're going to close out today with giving my crack at the my top 10 players in the league, and I've sort of been hesitant to do this because I do think it is just so hard to compare positions in AFL and comparing value and things like that, but I'll give it a go, and I think that for me, like, I might have to do it by position because I haven't even got a key defender in the in the top 10, which isn't very fair because they are probably just as important as other positions, but I've given it a go anyway despite that. So this is regardless of position for now, and we'll go through it one by one. So starting at number 1, you probably know who I'm going to say. I've talked about him enough earlier, but it is Nasiah Wanganeen Milera. I do think I don't think it's recency bias. I've been very high on him from the get go, and this 6 or 7 weeks, I don't think that you can look at it and think anything is unsustainable from him necessarily. If anything, he's going to get better the more familiar he gets with the role. So I couldn't be higher on him. I think he's just playing at an untouched level right now in the league. Spoke enough about him earlier. Finn Callaghan, he's my number 2. As I said in the GWS segment as well, he just feels like Chris Judd 2.0, but he's just bigger. He has the running power. He probably hasn't got the top end speed, but he's just so big and fast, and you really can't tag him. His ability to chain together handballs, like handoffs from players, the runarounds on the mark. He just really just jumpstarts that whole team, and they rally around him, and he is just an absolute meters gain beast and uses the ball very, very well as well. One of the best in terms of score involvements in the league as well. So I've got to have Finn Callaghan number 2. He is just unstoppable at the moment. Number 3, we have Nick Dacos. Everyone knows about Nick Dacos. He can do it all. His gut running and sprinting is just pretty similar to Finn Callaghan's actually in terms of being able to, take space and just keep between him and his defender, and he's very, very hard to tag because of that, and he just keeps going all day. But I think that where he differentiates himself from Finn Callaghan, it's not all power and kicking ability and meters gained. His creativity around the contest, his quickness and agility really cannot be understated, and his creativity in general just amazes me every time I watch Nick Dacos. So very, very exciting player, very clean with his hands as well. So that's why he comes in at number 3. So we've got our first key position player coming up, number 4. I've got Jeremy Cameron, and just playing absolutely great footy at the moment. He just cruises around. He's still the toughest matchup for a key forward in the league, in my opinion, because he probably doesn't have the absolute unstoppable athletic tools that a couple other guys that might feature in the top 10 in a minute have. But his aerobic ability to get up the ground, work back, and he's just a freak with the ball in hand. He can amazing field kick, can kick it from anywhere, and I think he's just absolutely the peak of his powers at the moment, and he is still one of my favourite players, if not favourite player to watch in the league at the moment. The Bont, he comes in at number 5 for me. He's the GOAT of this generation, in my opinion. I don't think he absolutely has his top gear anymore. I think we've seen a tiny drop-off from him this year in terms of his athletic ability at least, but he's still 5th in the league for me. He's clean as ever, and he's never rushed, and definitely is going to age like a Scott Pendlebury will, where I think he's going to be good for a very, very long time. So, don't really need to go too much onto Bond. Everyone knows what he is about. Coming in at number 6, we have Riley Thilthorpe. I think his ability to not only dominate up forward, his ability to grab contested marks. I don't think there's a backman in the league that can compete with him physically. His ability to be clean at ground level is probably one of the scariest things for opposition teams. Is you think the job is done, but no, he just cleans up down there as well. He's the best second ruck in the league as well, in my opinion. He's really good at getting clearances, whether it's in the forward 50 when he's taking those, or just straight up in the ruck around the ground. But for me, he really does it all, which is why I have him ahead of Sam Darcy at the moment in my rankings. I think that he's just a really, really complete player right now. which brings me to Mr. Sam Darcy, and I think it is tough to put him behind Phil Thorpe. And there absolutely would be team fits where I would have him over Riley Thilthorpe, because I do think that he is a harder matchup inside 50 specifically. His much has been talked about his reach and run and jump ability, and he's so nimble as well for someone that size. So definitely more nimble than Thilthorpe is. But I think that, just to compare the two, I just don't think his game is quite as versatile as Thilthorpe. So that's why I've got Thilthorpe just ahead of him at the moment. Coming in at number, what is it? 5, 6, 7, 8. Sorry, I should have numbered these. Coming in at 8 is Tom Green from the Giants. Absolute beast in the stoppages, clearance, absolute clearance pig. Uses the ball very well for that archetype as well. He's not just big, he's also really fast. He's a great athlete as well, and really impressive young player. Really, really smart. Always organising his team as well. It was good footage a few weeks ago of him just mic'd up and just absolutely telling backline players, midfielders, everyone to get organised. So he is a very impressive player, and really, really like watching Tom Green play. Coming in at 9 is Ed Richards. Probably gone under the radar a little bit since Bond's return at least, but he's been the better player this year out of the two of them, and he's just so tough as well. He's a huge midfielder who just keeps breaking lines and gaining ground. Hits the scoreboard more than most mids as well, which sets him apart and is responsible for a lot of the doggies' scores in general. So that's why Ed Richards is my number 9 player. I think the other thing with the doggies guys, with the catch-all sort of metrics, like the player ratings, a lot of that rewards scores and score involvement. So naturally, it's going to lend itself to players that are on higher scoring teams. So I think that's why when you look at some of the catch-all metrics, he is I think he rated the number 1 player in the competition. So I think that's something to note. When they are throwing those stats at you, that although it is an individual player metric, there is absolutely team influence on those sort of things as well. So that's a grain of salt why I haven't just gone off the player ratings and just said who I think is the best player based on that. It is anecdotal player ratings, so everyone's going to have their own. So Ed Richards might be higher or lower than other people's, but I've got him at 9 here. And to round out the top 10, I have Jordan Dawson. The size, toughness, skill, and marking ability from this guy just leaps off the page for a midfielder, and his ability to play multiple roles while still being able to hit the scoreboard as well is just really impressive. And he just feels like a serious finals player, plug and play wherever you need. A bit like a modern day Luke Hodge, I think, for me. I love my Hawks players, obviously, but he's just that guy who, he doesn't need to rack up 30 to be the most influential player on the ground. If he's just coordinating things out there, if he's taking intercept marks with that long piercing left foot, which, Hodge has as well, so that's the sort of the likeness there, but just the leadership out there that he shows and just the way that he leads, I think that, as a captain, he is, you would just love to play under him, and as I said, I think that, people are going to really, really catch on if they haven't already to how good of a player he is, because he just feels like he's absolutely built for finals. That's my top 10, guys, so let me know if you disagree, agree, whatever. Always happy to discuss stuff. And also, just on the back of that, wanted to shout out the 2021 draft class, which honestly could go down as one of the best ever, given they have 4 of my current top 10 in there. So just some of the names of this class to close things out is pretty crazy when I was going through it. They had Horn Francis, obviously number 1. Sam Darcy, Finn Callahan, Nick Dacos, Mac Andrew, Nasiah Wanganeen Milera, and Paul Curtis, all those guys taken in the draft, who are absolute stars for their teams at the moment, but then to a lesser extent, but still, absolute AFL players and key contributors on teams at the moment. From that same draft, we have Josh Rochelle, Jake Saligo, Josh Ward, Jai Amiss, Darcy Wilmot from the Lions, and Kai Lohman as well. Matt Johnson having a very good year for Freo. Connor McDonald at the Hawks again. Mitch Owens, Marcus Wintager, Jace Burgoyne as well. Even there's a long list of guys that are really, really contributing at the moment, and even from the rookie draft that year is pretty crazy. We've got Ned Long, Pat Voss, Carl Warner from Freo, Judd McVie, Ollie Dempsey, Matt Cottrell, and Bodie Hewland as well. So some crazy depth and top end talent from that draft. So yeah, just just a fun one to close out the show today, guys. So hope you enjoyed it. I won't be back next week, but yeah, I really enjoyed talking some footy again. And as I said, I'll have some stuff ready for finals time as well. So thanks for that, and enjoy episode 50 of Airtime with Jordan. Catch you guys.